And on this Thursday, June 26th, 2025 edition of Newsmakers, the U.S. Supreme Court is allowing states to cut off Medicaid money for Planned Parenthood amid a wider Republican-backed push to defund the organization, the country's largest abortion provider. The 6-3 ruling handed down today comes in a case that wasn't directly about abortion. It's instead about Medicaid funding for other services Planned Parenthood provides, like contraception, cancer screenings, and pregnancy testing. The ruling, authored by Justice Neil Gorsuch and joined by the rest of the court's conservatives, could have broader implications for Medicaid patients because it blocks them from suing to make sure they can visit the provider they choose. Public health care money generally can't be used to pay for abortions. Planned Parenthood has said Medicaid patients go there for other needs, in part because it can be tough to find a doctor who takes the publicly funded insurance. South Carolina's Republican governor says no taxpayer money should go to the organization. The state says other providers can fill a health care void left by Planned Parenthood's removal from Medicaid. Stanford Medicine has stopped so-called gender-affirming surgeries for patients under 19, following a trend among California healthcare providers to restrict the procedures. The announcement comes after the Supreme Court upheld Tennessee's ban. The procedures usually include puberty blockers and hormone treatments, with surgeries limited to older teens with severe gender dysphoria. Experts estimate a few hundred teens under 18 undergo surgeries each year. A new poll finds few Americans support allowing religious schools to become tax-funded public charter schools, but majorities are in favor of allowing religious chaplains to provide support services for public school students. The survey from the Associated Press Nork Center for Public Affairs Research shows the complexity of Americans' attitudes toward religious expression in schools, which varies depending on the kind of expression and sometimes crosses partisan lines. The findings also highlight tension points in the country's long-standing debate over the role of religion in public schools, which continues to drive legislation and legal action. Around 6 in 10 U.S. adults say that religious chaplains should be allowed to provide support services for students in public schools, but most do not think teacher-led prayer or a mandatory period during school hours for private prayer should be allowed in public schools. The questions exposed fault lines among partisans on both sides of the political spectrum. Democrats are firmly opposed to teacher-led prayer and mandatory school prayer periods, but divided on chaplain support services in public schools, while Republicans are firmly in favor of chaplain support services and teacher-led prayer, but divided on a mandatory school prayer period. Americans are more likely to oppose allowing religious schools to become tax-funded public charter schools than to favor this. About 4 in 10 are opposed, while roughly 1/4 are in favor, and about 1/3 are neither in favor nor opposed. In general, U.S. adults are more divided on tax-funded vouchers that help parents pay for tuition for their children to attend private or religious schools of their choice instead of public schools. Similar shares oppose and favor this. About 1/4 are neutral. About 3 in 10 U.S. adults say religion has too much influence on what children are taught in public school. About 2/3 of white evangelical Protestants say religion has too little influence. Most adults say freedom of religion and church-state separation are extremely or very important to the United States' identity as a nation, but 81% say religious freedom is important, compared with 64% who say this about separation of church and state. And that's Newsmakers for this Thursday, June 26th, 2025 edition. I'm Keith Black.